Thank you for giving me this chance to speak in your audience, Canadian audience, about our great poet, Nizami Ganjavi. And I guess you don't mind if I talk first about his ethnic identity and the ideas of multiculturalism, peculiar actually to his work, and which actually has made him quite a renowned uh, poet in the world literature. You know, Azerbaijanis take much pride in Nizami Ganjavi as the poet of Azerbaijan, not only as the poet of this geography, but even more as Azerbaijani poet of Turkic origin and by ethnicity. You may ask, why do my folks here in Azerbaijan put an emphasis on this ethnic identity, and why is this so sensitive to Azerbaijani scholars? And the main reason is that Nizami Ganjavi's ethnic identity, actually, it has gone far beyond academic circles, and to some extent it has become kind of a subject to political speculations and our neighboring countries. And it has become actually, on the other hand, it is become a kind of a stereotype to mention Nizami as a Persian poet, right? And the reference at this point is made to the language of his works. Actually, this language was language of poetry of non-Arab Muslim converts, especially during the Muslim Golden Age. And actually, the reference to the Persian language makes the arguments of scholars in Iran actually get tuned into the political ideology of this country, and which is quite jealous about the very notion of Azerbaijan itself. Unfortunately, the Western scholarship seems to be not much immune from being influenced by this kind of approach towards Islamic countries. Ethnicity, as such is ethnicity, partly because I guess Nizami is viewed obviously as a great product of Muslim Golden Age, and as such his ethnicity, matters very little, and partly because it has been dominated by Iranian-centered approach in Oriental studies. However, the best proof of his ethnic roots is found in his works, which need to be insightfully studied. So let me go ahead with some excerpts from Nizami's poems. And I want first draw your attention to the fact that his poems are full of Turkisms. And I will limit my references at this point to just a few examples of them, considering that my speech is meant to be limited to some 10 minutes or more. For instance, in his poem Seven Beauties, he says, Türkiye'm ra der in Habeş nekharan. My Turkic identity is neglected in Ethiopia. And let me enlarge this quote by more lines in English. These heartless ones will not break me. I submit my complaint to those who are not yet in the world. My Turkic identity in this Abyssinia, Ethiopia means, is not recognized. And so they don't eat my tasty dolga. Complaining to the people of Ganja, Ganja is the second largest city of Azerbaijan, in a mode of despair, and making at this point a reference to Abyssinia used in the literature of those times as a symbol of darkness or ignorance, or backwardness. He first emphasized his Turkic identity as a sign of his noble origin, which actually, the way he complains, can hardly be recognized in the environment of darkness and backwardness. And then he implies his beautiful poems as tasty as the national food of the Turks, dovra, which are not appreciated in his own land, since the stomachs of the titled customers are unable to digest such fine food as dovra. And one more quote from his long poem, Treasure of Mysteries. He says, power of the Turks, which exalted, gained power through the love of justice. Once you create lawlessness, tyranny, you are not a Turk, but a Hindu thief. Bertels is a great Russian Orientalist. He referred to Nizami's proud commitment to his ethnic identity. He stated that Nizami's works, in his works, the Seljuk nobility is contrasted with the old Iranian aristocracy, which, according to Nizami, does not seek justice. And one more example is that I found at the end of his epic poem, Khosrow and Shirin. Nizami crying bitterly for the death of his beloved wife, Afak. Afak, by the way, she was a Kipchak woman. Kipchak, they constitute one branch of Turkic people nowadays living in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. And crying for the death of his wife, he implores God to help their son Muhammad. And he says, if my Turkic woman left my tent, I implore you to save my Turkic son. The original Persian word for Turkic son is Turkzade. And I would make one more reference to Mehmed Emin Resulzadeh. Actually, if you know, he was one of the founders of the Republic of Azerbaijan that existed 2 years from 1918 till 1920, just before Bolsheviks came and invaded Azerbaijan at that time. And he wrote a book titled Azerbaijani poet Nizami Ganjavi. And actually, interesting is how he stated about, made his statement about Azerbaijani poet Nizami Ganjavi. He says, who dares to say he is not a Turk to a poet who calls the great and the beautiful a Turk, beauty and greatness Turkic, the country of greatness and beauty Turkestan. Interesting to note that this the abundance of the Turkisms in Nizami's works with various philosophical, ethical, historical, political implications, it helps us understand the magnitude of his talent, which goes far beyond his ethnic and cultural boundaries, and gives us much insight of how this talent could incorporate the values of multiculturalism into his works through the lens of his Turkisms. Actually, one of the reasons which brought him great fame, as I said, and made him a poet of the world literature lies in how successfully his work generated the philosophy of multiculturalism, and notably the contemporary Azerbaijani society, where there is, much cultural diversity, owes much to it is literary legacy in which Nizami's works actually take pride of place, and all his poems are full of teaching episodes that promote religious tolerance. He repeatedly appeals to the character of Jesus Christ. And in the chapter on advising the king to uphold justice of his poem, Treasure of Mysteries, one of the advices to the king is the following: Turn your face to religion because it is a strong support. Turn your back to the sun because it is worshiping fire. Then he goes on, saying, tear this curtain so that the wings of Jesus may grow from your feet. He who likes Jesus gave his life, truly conquered the world. So at this point, unbelievably important somehow, a giant of Islamic golden age, Nizami, be much revered poet of his time, with his deep Muslim faith, how he could embrace Jesus differently, namely not as considered in Muslim theology, but in the light of Christian theology. You probably would first assume that it could stem from the fact that Jesus Christ is one much revered in Islamic faith as a prophet. But intriguing is that his character mainly used to be viewed far from this traditional Muslim assumption. We clarify that the multicultural thinking of Nizami favors to benefit from Christian theology, which he sees fit to be used for instilling his multicultural ideas into ideals into the minds of his readers. In his poem Treasure of Mysteries, Nizami directly refers to the multicultural purpose of his poetry as saying, the temple of poetry was founded by me. The art of poetry was freed from the tower. The ascetic and the monks rushed towards me. They threw down their cloaks and belts. Actually, he clearly means that his poetry belongs to everyone, regardless of religion, and says that his writings can benefit not only Muslim Sufis, who actually wore at that time the cloak. In original, it is khirka, but also Christians who wore a woolen belt around their waists. In original, it is zunnar. And in Nizami's poem, Seven Beauties, we come across a vital picture of a multicultural environment. Actually, Nizami brings together women of different faith from 7 climate zones of the world: Indian, Greek, Slavic, Maghreb, Kharazm, Chinese, Turkish women around the rule of Bahrain. And these women tell him the stories taking place in different parts of the world. And this implies actually the cosmic model of the medieval world, in which space was understood as divided into 7 climate zones, with each one to be considered as one of the 7 layers of the sky. And the 7 beauties, these are housed in different palaces, and these palaces are decorated with symbols corresponding to their respective climates. And Bahrain, dressed in the color of a star known for every climate, visits these palaces as a symbol of joining this cosmic harmony. The plot is very interesting at this point. It's going through the process of improvement of Bahrain's personality, and which gets ultimately matured into kind of prophethood. And the fact that the process is taking place in a multicultural environment subconsciously reinforces the idea that there is no alternative to multiculturalism if the purpose is human life, or is the purpose of maturity for humans to go through as to reach some, the highest level of one's personality. I would get back again to the image of Jesus Christ in Nizami's poems, especially one that demonstrates how Nizami needed to use the image of Jesus as to enrich the literary merits of his works. In this regard, what we see in Nizami's Iskandername is that his overall knowledge of Christianity is really striking. And being a devout Muslim and as such having honorific name Sheikh Nizami, he proves to have not only deeply known the Bible, his interest in Christianity goes as far as to capture even apocryphal text of early Christianity. In the introduction part of his work, of Iskandername, let me quote, out of the braids of the night and the heart, I weave 7 scholars of silk. Like Jesus, I can pull colorful threads from this navy blue jar. One has to be familiar with the apocryphal Bible to be able to know that these poetic lines claiming Nizami's high appreciation of his own poetry directly relates to the story of Jesus and the diary about the childhood of Jesus. The narrative is that Jesus enters the workshop of a dyer named Salem. He collects the clothes he finds in the workshop and puts them all in a tub full of indigo. And the dyer notes what happened and becomes very upset and says, you spoil everything and destroy my reputation, for each one of the garments was to have a different color. Jesus takes the clothes out of the tub, and each of them proves to be in the color that I wished. And in the end, let me say again, it was Nizami's perception of Jesus that has made the character of Jesus run like a red thread through all Azerbaijani classic literature. If you may have some questions, raise some questions about some exams. I will be more than happy to, bring more examples from other works of Azerbaijani classics who obviously have been much influenced by Nizami's ideas, which he had ever promoted in his works. Thank you very much for your listening.